Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if All Might was killed by One for All, and left Izuku alone to defeat him, part 2. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Moose96, link is in the description, also subscribe to our channel, and like this video, so let's begin the video. Izuku awoke with a massive headache and heavy nausea. He tried to get up, but immediately got sick and fell back down on the bed. His throat was dry and he was very thirsty. He tried to figure out what happened, but found he couldn't remember a thing, so he forced himself through his terrible headache to figure out what happened. We went to the Sears Tower and the Bean, then we went to all the sports stadiums and went to Navy Pier, then we were at a bar and Izuku gulped. You two are unbelievable. Izuku heard his teacher yell. In the living room, Eraserhead was drilling into Yankee and Lady Liberty, who were also clearly suffering from last night's festivities. You brought an underage kid alcohol, pressured him into drinking it. All the while he has a quirk that could level this building. Are you fucking insane, he yelled. Listen, I didn't mean for it to go that far, Yankee said, rubbing his head while Lady Liberty vomited into a garbage can. Shut up, Yankee, I don't want to hear your bullshit excuse. I can't be too mad, I suppose, I expected nothing less from you. Aizawa was scolded before turning to Lady Liberty. You on the other hand I had hoped would be more civilized. You're sitting there coddling him and asking him to marry you. Sorry, she said with tears from vomiting so much. I thought just one drink would be fine. I don't care so much if you get drunk. Aizawa said. I can't even begin to comprehend the backwards logic you used to rationalize giving alcohol to a minor. We just felt bad. Thought it would help him relax. She cried. She couldn't use her quirk to alleviate the hangover and sickness since it was naturally induced. You know, in my experience there are 3 types of drunks. The happy, the sad, and angry. It seems perfectly reasonable to give a teenager with the power to blow away a small town a substance that clouds his judgment. Even more, he had been taking pain pills to help his injuries, and you pour booze down his throat. He's lucky his liver didn't get fried. Eraserhead was making sure to be as loud as he could to increase the pain of their headaches. I didn't know he was on pills. Yankee said, feeling remorse. The only reason I don't report this and have your licenses revoked is cause that nut job in Japan could come at any time. I cannot believe you two are America's top pros. Aizawa said. Both of you get out of here and don't show your face unless I call you, got it? Yeah. The 2 pros said they were ashamed of themselves. They slowly got up and left. One more fish to fry. Aizawa said, stomping over to Izuku's room and slamming the door open. Hi. He was terrified knowing he was about to get the ass chewing of a lifetime. You have done some stupid stuff, Midoriya. This one takes the cake. Could you not be so loud? My head hurts. Midoriya asked quietly. Good, cause you're about to endure a long and hard lesson. You knew you shouldn't be drinking, but what did you do? The homeroom teacher asked. I know. Izuku said. They said it would help me feel better about what's going back home. I didn't want to drink it, but I was so upset I was willing to do anything to take my mind off it, even if just for a little bit. Well, it worked considering you could barely stand last night, and Aizawa said, remembering last night. You didn't. Aizawa screamed. Oh my, Izuku. Lady Liberty said, holding him in her lap. Hey kid. Try punching me and see how far I launch. Okay. Izuku laughed. He stumbled up and towards Yankee and wound up. Shit. Aizawa yelled, activating his quirk. That itch. Smack. Izuku roared as he harmlessly Yankee due to his quirk being nullified by Eraser. That was weak, Yankee said, laughing before falling over and passing out. Eraserhead decided to not mention that, he didn't want to relive that pants-shitting nightmare. Well, given how much agony you are in, I'd say that's punishment enough, now get up. But Izuku protested, clutching his head. Tough shit, this is penance for being an idiot. Get moving now. Aizawa ordered. Izuku moaned as he slowly clutched his head in agony. He wobbled his way over to the door and to the kitchen to get water to nullify the parched drought that was plaguing him. He dragged himself to the elevator with his teacher as he entered the bottom floor. Izuku was immediately assaulted with the bright lights of the lobby and loud noises of the metropolis outside. If you're gonna keep complaining, know you did this to yourself. Aizawa said as he checked out his room key and exited the building. They would be taking a cab to the local hero training and practice atrium 30 miles away. Aizawa had had the foresight to drain his savings to bring with him before they left Japan and had gone to a currency exchange to get US dollars. He summoned a cab as the 2 got in. Chicago Hero Training Atrium. Aizawa said as the cab driver plugged in the address on his GPS. Izuku tried and wished to fall back asleep, but the movement of the car made him feel all the more ill. The trip was mostly silent due to Midoriya being sick and Aizawa not getting enough sleep last night. Around an hour later they arrived at their location. 135.76. The driver said. Geez. Aizawa thought as he handed the drive his due. The driver sped away as they stood outside the atrium. It was early in the morning as they could still hear the sounds of birds chirping. There you are. Izuku turned to see the familiar face of Gran Torino making his way over. The old man was truly grateful to see Midori alive. He had lost his friend Nanashimura and now All Might to Sfo, he couldn't bear to lose another. Gran Torino. Aizawa greeted me. Glad to see you two made it out safe. I heard what happened to Toshinari and feared the worst. The old hero said. And you know why we are here. Aizawa said. With All Might gone you are the only one familiar with One for All. You need to train Midoriya to use its full power. Of course, we must get started immediately. Come Izuku. Gran Torino said, noting that the child had his head pointing down and moaning. Is he okay? Just a night of juvenile delinquency. Aizawa explained. Don't tell me. Gran Torino said shocked. Yup. Aizawa said. Brad is paying for it now. You know better than that. Gran Torino scolded. Isn't the headache enough punishment? Izuku cried. He's in no condition to train like this. Torino said angrily. I need to get him some water and greasy food and some ibuprofen to get him squared away. Do what you got to do. I need to train myself. Aizawa said. If I can figure out a way to erase Afo's mind quirk even for a second, then things will be a lot easier. It didn't work. Torino asked. No, it only stopped me from getting infected. I believe it is because since that is not his actual quirk, it did not have the same effect. Aizawa explained. I see, do what you must eraser, leave the boy to me. GT said as they went their separate ways. The portal appeared in a small forest several miles from the atrium. Out stepped the students of Class 1A. Iida and Yaoi Rozu have been placed in charge of the operation. Listen up. Iida said. This hero training atrium is where we believe the terrorist to be. We will send the stealth squad to investigate. Should he be there, the capture squad will move in while the combat squad secures the perimeter. Keep in mind that aside from Eraserhead and Gran Torino, there will be numerous other pros in the atrium. Don't expose yourself unless absolutely necessary. Yaoi Rozu said. They had forgotten their hero costumes to avoid attention and were dressed in regular civilian clothing. But that being said, stealth squad, you're up. Iida commanded as Hagarick, Shoji, Ashido, Koda and Jiro, you're up. Contact us when you confirm his location. Yes, a fearless leader. Jiro said, rolling her eyes as the 5 students made their way to the atrium. Koda used an invoice to summon a feral dog as Shoji pulled out a piece of Midoriya's clothing. The dog sniffed it before starting to follow the trail as they pursued. Thank you. Izuku cried as he dropped water glass after water glass and chowed down into a greasy cheeseburger. It helped alleviate his first hangover a lot, but he still felt crappy afterwards. Tell me how your fight with Afo went. Gran Torino asked. Well, Izuku explained the fight and how he broke all 4 limbs using 100% power. He went straight to full power. GT asked. I had to. Izuku said. I saw how he went blow for blow with All Might, no way 8% was gonna do anything than cause him to break a sweat. I see, and you were able to injure him? GT asked. I broke his faceplate, but I don't think I hurt him. He took a lot of All Might's hits at full force and was standing, and I only hit him with 4. Izuku explained. This is gonna be tough, we have to get you mastering 100% and fast. Afo can come at any time and finish you off. GT said. And I think I know how to do it. How? Izuku asked, intrigued. Think of it like this. GT said. One for All is a giant ferocious river being held back by a dam. You give it all out at once, the earth doesn't have time to erode into a riverbed, and you flood everything. If you slowly crack the dam little by little, allowing water to come out at a controlled pace, the earth will have time to erode and contain the output of the river till eventually, you can open the dam constantly and the river flows out controlled and at max output. Your body is the earth, the river is One for All, and the dam is your control. That's actually a good way to put it, I can picture it in my head. However, such an event takes a long time, and time is a luxury we do not have. How would you make the earth able to withstand that force faster? GT asked. I guess you'd have to have people already dig something out. Izuku asked. Excellent. GT said, impressed yet again by the boy's intelligent mind. Question now is, how did that river dig? When I was visiting Dave's shield with All Might, his daughter made a cast for me that absorbed the output so I could punch it full force and not break my arm. If we could get something like for my whole body, I could get it down in no time. Izuku declared. That's my boy. GT yelled proudly. I'll get in contact with Melissa. While I'm doing that, practice the damn image in your head and try to get 10% without hurting yourself. On it. Izuku said as he closed his eyes and focused on the analogy of the dam. The quartet of students followed the dog till they came to the atrium. After leading them there, Kota released his quirk and the dog proceeded to run away. Shoji used his arms to form eyes to help him scout the area. "What do you see?" Ishido asked. "A few heroes outside, not many guards. Guess they figure the heroes inside could handle anyone trying to break in," Shoji said. "There is a chain link fence I estimate to be around 15 feet tall. It's barbed on the top as well. Good, Ishido and Toru, you're with me. Shoji and Kota will stay up here to provide lookout and support," Jiro said. "On it," the two other girls said as the three slowly made their way down with Shoji keeping watch. The trio came to the fence and saw the coast was clear. "I might be close enough to hear him," Jiro said, plugging her earphone jack into the ground. She immediately heard the voices of people for a mile around, along with other background noise. She closed her eyes and tried to focus on finding the terrorist's voice. She furrowed her brows till she finally reached a lock-on. "Alright, let's try this, my body is the earth," Izuku said in his voice. "Got him, he is here," Jiro said. Ishido melted a small hole in the fence. Ishido proceeded to then use her acid to melt a tiny hole in the fence, barely big enough to fit through. Hagaric, you're up, find out exactly where he is. "Yippee. You got it," Toru said as she took off her gloves and shoes, rendering her totally invisible as she strolled into the area. She was careful not to make too much noise, but given how little she was, she didn't weigh too much, so she was very light on her feet. She evaded all pros walking in and out of the facility and searched the whole building to find her target. After 30 minutes of searching, she finally found him. "There you are," she said as she saw Midoriya meditating. She pulled out a small beeper she let hidden underneath her tongue and pressed it. "That's the signal," Iida said as the rest of the class moved to meet the stealth team. They made their way through the trees till they came across the stealth team. "Where is Hakuger?" Jiro asked. "She's fine, she's keeping an eye on him in case he moves," Jiro said. "Alright, capture team on me," Iida commanded. "Same for your combat team, let's move it," Yayoi Rozu said. "Why does she get to be the leader? This is some bullshit," Bakugo thought to himself as they moved out. "All if you grab these," Yayoi Rozu said, creating 19 ID cards. "These will help us get in without too much trouble." "Why didn't you just make those from the start?" Bakugo yelled. "Because genius, if he hadn't been there then he might have discovered we were here and he would have moved somewhere we wouldn't have been able to find him." Yayoi Rozu. "You should try using your head more often. They'll kill you, loser," Bakugo screamed before being muffled by Kirishima. "Shut up, dude. You're gonna get us caught," Kirishima said quietly as Bakugo muffled curse words through his hand. "Are we all set?" Iida asked as he saw everyone nod. "Let's go." "Okay, I think I'm ready," Izuku said, walking into an arena. He focused on the dam analogy as he activated One for All. Green energy surged within him. "Detroit. Smash." He roared, punching a nearby boulder using 10%. Izuku prepared for a world of pain, expecting his arm to break, and shut his eyes. When he felt no stinging pain, he slowly opened his eyes and saw that the boulder had smashed to dust and his arm was still intact. "Alright," he yelled triumphantly. It was only a 2% increase, but every long journey begins with a single step. "Alright, I'm gonna go for 12% this time. Baby steps, Izuku," he thought to himself as he charged up One for All again on another boulder, keeping the thought of the dam in his mind. "Detroit smash," he yelled again and was ecstatic to see it worked. He started to feel confident and repeated the process till he reached 20%. He stopped after that, feeling a powerful sharp pin in his arm. "If I use full cowl, I can probably go even harder. I have to be careful though, I cannot afford to hurt myself again," he said. He took a deep breath as he activated full cowl and felt the power surge in his body at once. "This is it," Izuku yelled. "Detroit smash." This time he pushed to 25% and felt a tremendous power surge. This time the boulder and much of the surrounding area was completely destroyed. He yelped as a severe pain in his arm flared up. He brought his arm down and saw that while it was strained, it was not broken. He laughed victoriously. "I'm doing it." He could feel his sore body much like after a weightlifting session. This soreness meant his body was adapting to the power load. "Hello, villain." Izuku's eyes widened as he slowly turned around, recognizing that voice. He let out a whimper at seeing his classmates standing behind him with a dark glare in their eyes. "What? How did you?" he cried. "You thought you could escape your righteous judgment by feeling Japan was a coward," Iida snarled. "You will be brought back to face justice." "Eyes please. I don't want to fight you. This isn't you, and you know it," Izuku said. He got ready to fight even though he really didn't want to. He didn't even have time to think as Iida charged him full force which caused him to tumble to the ground. He yelled as his head slammed on the ground. He then saw sticky purple orbs on his legs which prevented him from getting up. He turned to see Mineta prepare several more sticky balls to throw. He grunted as he activated one for all at 15% and was able to break free of the balls, only to find himself enveloped in Ciro's tape which restrained his body as Mineta pounded him with more sticky balls. He yelled firing up full cowl and one for all at 20% as he easily broke through the traps. It didn't last long as Sato snuck up behind and put him in a chokehold. He knew that at full power Sato would be nothing to him, but Sato was strong enough to be a struggle when he was only at 20%. More tape and sticky balls smothered him as Asui used her tongue to hold him down as well, all the while Iida delivered multiple kicks to him. He suddenly felt Sato release him which he took advantage of as he powered up to release himself only to feel a massive pressure on his back. He collapsed to the ground as severe pain rolled up his whole body. He choked for air as he looked up and saw several large chunks of debris floating above him which could only mean Uraraka. He choked out. He looked up to see the brunette walking towards him with malice in her eyes. He looked up at her and knew she was going to bring down a whole new world of hurt. He tried to get up only to have another piece of debris fall on him, this time making him fall on his back. He was still covered in tape and sticky balls and had the wind knocked out of him. "You took everything from me," Uraraka said maliciously as she ran at him. She jumped on top of him and began to punch him and squeeze his neck. Izuku knew he could easily escape right now, but if he used his power when she was this close she might get injured. "Weak," she screamed, punching him again causing his nose to bleed. He looked up in sorrow and despair. "I can't do it. I can't hurt her or anyone else," he thought. "I hate you," she screamed, squeezing his neck as hard as her hands could. "I won't hurt you. I can't. I will never hurt you no matter what," Izuku cried. All for One had used his ultimate weakness against him. "So could you make him a full bodysuit like that cast you made him?" GT asked Melissa Shield over the phone. "Yup. It might take a while, but I'll do anything to help stop the guy who killed my uncle Might," Melissa said determined. "Brains and beauty, you are truly gifted," GT complimented as he heard an explosion. "What the hell was that?" GT asked as he heard screaming and explosions. He immediately got up and tried to figure out the source. It was a training center after all, it could just be a pro practicing a super move. That was until he heard a blood-curdling scream. "What is it?" Melissa asked concerned. "I have to go. Get to work on that suit. I'll call you back later," GT said, putting the phone down and making his way to the source of the screaming. He came across a hallway where he saw several teenagers guarding a doorway to an arena. "Are they done with that bastard?" One does them with ash-colored hair asked. "Have patience," the one with red and white hair replied. "That's Endeavor's son, he's in Izuku's class which means oh shit," GT thought as he sprung into action. "Hey you there old man. Where do you think Bakugo?" tried to say as he was kicked in the face, knocking him back. Todoroki and Kirishima barely had time to respond as they too were met with GT's fury. Kirishima hardened himself which made him resistant to the hard hits, but GT was still too fast for him to land a hit. He was struck back when a shadowy figure attacked him and launched him into the wall. He looked up and saw Tokoyami with a dark shadow next to him. He got back up before the shadow creature could get him again, but was struck by a laser beam courtesy of Aoyama. GT clutched his chest as his aging heart could barely keep up. "I'm getting way too old for this kind of shit," GT grumbled. "Yankee, you better get your ass over here." "What the hell is going on here?" a man called out as a cannon made by Yaoi Rozu fired at him. The man quickly activated his quirk which turned him into rubber so he could slink out of the way. He moved forward and struck Yaoi Rozu in the chest to knock her back before running to GT. "You okay old man?" "Yeah thanks Flex," GT said. "Flex? The rubber hero. He can turn his body into rubber allowing him to stretch and contort any way he wants. He is America's number 76th pro hero." "Even better, I thought back up," Flex said as several more pros arrived. "Now this is more like it," GT said. On the other side of the door, Izuku was trying his best to reason with his classmates. "He's brainwashed you," Izuku cried. "I'm your friend. You all mean the world to me. Don't make me have to fight you please." "Your words mean nothing villain," Sato said. "Ribbit, we wouldn't be friends with a weakling villain like you," Asui added. Izuku suddenly fell into despair. This was just like when he was quirkless, everyone wanting to hurt and ostracize him. Nothing had changed, even with this quirk he was still a loser that no one wanted. "No. No," he screamed, giving into a panic attack. The doors burst open as Gran Torino entered and proceeded to bombard the students with light kicks to knock them down. Two heroes entered the room and started to fight the students so GT could reach Izuku. Izuku! He yelled, running over to the boy who was still restrained and badly bruised. Izuku. No, stop. I can be a hero. Stop being so cruel. Don't leave me to suffer alone. Izuku screamed hysterically. Damn it, he's having a panic attack. GT thought. All of the events over last week were starting to drive him over the edge. GT resorted to smacking the kid to get him to his senses. Izuku, it's me. Snap out of it. GT yelled, slapping Midoriya across the face. Please Ichako, stop this, I would never hurt you no matter what. Izuku said in a trance. Damn it, wake up. GT yelled as Izuku snapped back to reality. What happened? Izuku asked. It's not important right now. Get up, we have to get you out of here. GT yelled as a black portal opened up. All faces turned to the portal as the one man that was feared exited through it. We meet again, young Midoriya. Izuku wanted to vomit, no, that was putting it lightly. Standing before him was the man who stole his home, his mother, his idol and teacher, and his friends. His heart nearly burst open as repressed mental anguish tore his mind into pieces. GT quickly got in front of Izuku to protect him as All for One walked closer. Master? Todoroki said as the students of Class 1A bowed in respect. GT looked with a horrified expression at the fact that they actually revered this monster. All for One? GT said with a bad taste in his mouth. The one whole stole his friend and love, her pupil, and was now trying to take the last thing he had from either of them. You're still an old man. All for One taunted. You looked elderly when I slaughtered the bitch Nanashimura. GT knew his strategy to get him angry, so he rushed and made a mistake. GT had lived long enough to know this ruse. Several American pros yelled as they charged the villain. No, don't. GT cried, but it was too late. All for One merely lifted a hand and all of them flung backward into the metal wall. The sickening crack of bones resounded throughout the arena. When will it be enough for you? GT asked angrily. When will the mindless killing stop? When any legacy of my little brother has been erased from history. Afo growled. I sought to bring order to a chaotic and virgin world, ignorant in the gifts of quirks. You murdered thousands. Gran Torino spat. When does it end? What do you hope to accomplish with a long life as meaningless as yours? You're not special, you merely were born with a good quirk, your legacy will never last. Now it was Afo's turn to get angry. You dare oppose me, Afo roared in anger. I shall erase you and Midoriya from this world in a slow and horrific way. Afo's right arm turned into a massive buff limb composed of muscle and metal. Now you will die. Damn it, I can't block this. GT thought all he could do was try to at least get Midoriya out of the way. GT saw in slow motion Afo's fist fire towards him as Izuku. GT kicked Midoriya out of the way as Afo's fist came ever closer. GT braces himself for the deadly impact which would turn him into red mist as a massive figure came down and took the hit. What? Afo asked as he was suddenly blown back with a tremendous force that sent him hurtling out through the walls and outside the atrium. GT looked up in joy to see the cavalry had arrived. A plethora of America's pros had arrived on the scene. Take care of these wimps. Yankee said, referring to the students of Class 1A. Along with Yankee were Spangle, Lady Liberty, and a dozen more pros with vengeance in their eyes. The boss is mine. Yankee looked to see the dead bodies of 3 dead bodies and felt rage rise up. Flex, smoke, ethanol. Yankee thought. I will avenge you. America's #1 hero started to run to chase after Afo, leaving Class 1A to deal with the American pros. Take the boy and leave. The hero Spangle ordered. We can deal with this lot. I'll try to get rid of his control. If I can touch their head I can free them. Lady Liberty said, referring to Class 1A. Understood, please try not to hurt them too badly, they aren't doing this on purpose. GT pleaded as he picked up Izuku. No promises. Spangle said as he and the other heroes charged forward. Outside the atrium, All for One slowly got back up from the crater he had created on impact. What was that power just now? He thought. Only wielders of One for All have even been capable of that kind of raw power. Afo didn't have time to think as Yankee landed 20 feet in front of him. So you're All for One, huh? Yankee said angrily. You must be a Yankee. Afo said. The villain knew of Yankee but did not know of his quirk. I must give you credit, only All Might was ever able to hit me that hard. You come into my country, kill my people, and use children to do your dirty work. The Yankee growled. Trash like you can't be allowed to exist. Then what do you plan to do about it, hero? Afo mocked. I'm going to show you exactly why I'm America's #1 pro. Yankee roared as he launched forward. Inside the atrium, the students of Class 1A engaged in battle with the heroes. Spangle used his quirk to fire string-like explosions across the arena, knocking the students off their feet. Lady Liberty saw this as a chance and ran to the nearest one. If I can get at least one. She thought as she ran towards a pink girl with horns. She placed her head on the girl and activated her quirk. You'll be fine now. Lady Liberty cheered as the pink girl merely looked up at her. What? Why didn't it work? This has always worked. Lady Liberty said as she felt burning on her hand. She screamed as she pulled her hand back to see the skin burning away from acid. The muscle was now exposed but quickly melting off like hot cheese as her bones were not exposed. She quickly put her good hand on the injured one and used her quirk to heal it. The tissue on the hand quickly grew back to its former self. My lady. Spangle cried, landing next to her. What happened? I tried to save her. Lady Liberty said, tearing up. My quirk didn't work. It always works. Ah, I just used it to heal. What? Spangle asked, bewildered. The only reason I can think of why, Lady Liberty said, is cause my quirk only heals the after effects of another quirk. That can only mean that he is constantly controlling them, so it cancels out mine. He is controlling millions, all while fighting Yankee. Spangle asked, shocked. What kind of demon is this? Outside the atrium, the ground shook as Afo and Yankee exchanged blows. Looks like he doesn't know my quirk is kinetic absorption, otherwise he would have tried to take it by now. If I can keep him fooled, I can use my ultimate move, Yankee thought as Afo delivered a powerful punch to Yankee's stomach. America gagged from the force but quickly got back to his feet. Instead of releasing it back, he held it in his body. Atomic blast. Yankee's ultimate move, he keeps the kinetic energy of blows within his body and builds it up till he can't take anymore and then releases it all at once with the force of a small nuclear bomb, depending on how much he has stored. Yankee grunted in pain as he took blow for blow and felt the power surging in his body. He knew that if anyone was caught in his atomic blast they could be killed. The power surging in his body was painful, it felt as if he couldn't breathe and that his heart would give out any second. Where has your strength gone? All for One taunted. Was that one punch the best you had to offer? No, but this is. Yankee said as his body flared up as he wound his hand back. All for One picked up on the massive energy in the man's fist. Atomic blast. Yankee roared with all his might as he plunged the force of dozens of powerful blows into one strike. Afo saw this coming and immediately activated every single defensive quirk at his disposal as the first made contact. The force was so great that at first nothing was heard as the sheer amount of force broke the sound barrier as it created a massive sonic boom. Windows shattered, the earth shook, and the clouds were blown away as All for One was struck with the force of a small nuclear weapon. All nearby structures that weren't heavily reinforced were leveled along with any trees being uprooted. The atrium itself, which had been built to contain the most powerful quirks, even shook to its foundation. What the hell was that? Bakugo yelled. He did it, his ultimate move. Spangle said. I think he had to resort to that. Lady Liberty gulped. She had only seen him use his ultimate move once before to get rid of a massive tsunami that was going to strike Anchorage. Yankee's atomic blast held the same destructive power as many of All Might's moves. Izuku's eyes widened as he felt the raw power course through the air. This is like when All Might sent Nomu flying. I knew Yankee were strong, but this is insane. Izuku thought. That's our number one for you. One of the other American pros said as he fended off Kirishima. The American pros cheered knowing their victory was assured. GT however knew better. He walked away from All Might's ultimate move. While he was weakened, it would still be more powerful than what Yankee unleashed. GT thought worriedly. Outside, Yankee was on his knees, exhausted from absorbing and releasing so much power. He hyperventilated in order to calm his beating heart. Not bad. Yankee's eyes shot open in disbelief. There was no way. He looked to see Afo limping towards him. It appeared he suffered multiple broken bones, but he was still standing and alive. What? Yankee whispered. And no. That's impossible. How are you still alive? I'll admit you gave me quite the worry there. Afo said, grunting in pain. You are the most powerful one I've fought after All Might. What are you? You damned monster. Yankee yelled. This couldn't be happening. His ultimate move, the most powerful blow he had ever used, only broke a few bones. I have taken quite a bit of quirks over the years, a lot of defensive and protective ones as well. Using them all at once was enough to take the brunt, but still it appears I suffered some ailments as a result. Afo explained. Not since his first fight with All Might has anyone ever managed to actually injure him. I believe I figured out your quirk as well. At first I thought you had enhanced strength, but now I see you use kinetic conversion. It all makes sense now. The harder I hit you, the more powerful you become. You used my own power against me. Of course now though, you are weak as long as nothing hits you right. Yankee was dumbfounded, unable to move. No wonder All Might fell to this villain. Was he immortal? Back in the arena, the students had all been rounded up and rendered immobile by the pros. "Some things are not right," Spangle said. "The Yankees would have returned by now." "I don't hear anything. If they were still fighting, surely we'd hear something," Lady Liberty said. "We better go check it out," Spangle said, turning to the other pros. "Watch those kids and make sure they don't do anything funny." "Yes, sir," the pro said as he and Lady Liberty made their way outside. "You think he won?" Lady Liberty asked. "I hope, unless I am hallucinating, he used an atomic blast. Only someone at All Might's level could have withstood that," Spangle replied as they came outside to find a wasteland. Trees, cars, small buildings, everything had been blown away. "Yankee!" Lady Liberty screamed, seeing All for One with his hand on Yankee's head. Yankee screamed as he fell backwards. "No way," Spangle said. The two ran towards Yankee, who lay unconscious on the ground. "You killed him, you piece of shit." "I did no such thing. My quarrel is not with you people. I merely borrowed his quirk, a useful thing it truly is," All for One said. "You stole his quirk?" Liberty asked. "That means," Spangle said. "Yes, he is now quirkless, he will never be a hero again," AFO said. "Heed this as a warning, I have no interest in this country, but if you try to ever interfere again, I will turn your cities to ash." "Why you?" Lady Liberty yelled as she tried to lunge at him, only to be stopped by Spangle, who held his arm out in front of her. "Don't," he muttered. "You'd be dead in seconds." "Smart move," AFO said. "I do have one last request, you have been good hosts after all. Where is young Midoriya?" The two heroes looked at him with defiance in their eyes. "Of course you won't tell me. You wouldn't be very good heroes if you sold out a child to save your skin after all." "Then why bother asking?" Spangle said. "I know you are prepared to die," AFO said as he extended a metal blade to Yankee's comatose body. "Are you prepared to sacrifice someone else's life?" AFO slowly pushed the blade into Yankee's neck, which drew blood. "Stop," Lady Liberty said. "We don't know where he went." "You'll have to do better than that," AFO said. "We are telling the truth," Spangle replied. "I don't think you are," AFO said as he drew his hand back to thrust into Yankee's neck. He was stopped as a carbon fiber scarf wrapped around his arm and pulled it away. "Now who is here?" AFO said as he looked up to see Eraserhead staring him down. DT had carried Midoriya as far as his old body would allow. Izuku was silent for the most part, not sad or angry, just nothing. GT eventually placed him down so he could take a breather. "We need to get out of here," GT said. "He knew you'd be here because my location was known. If we go somewhere without telling anyone, we can be safe till you master your quirk." "Why does she hate me?" Izuku asked. GT looked to see Izuku staring at the ground. "Pardon?" GT asked. "Uraraka, she's so much more violent," Izuku said. "I know they are being controlled, but the rest were just focused on capturing me. She wanted to hurt me, make me suffer, kill me." "Don't think about it, kid," GT said. "This kid was going to need years of therapy to cope with all this. We have to get you somewhere safe. We can get Melissa's suit and you can begin training to unleash your full force." "Why did he pick me?" Izuku said, clutching his chest. "I wish he never did. Why did he make such a stupid choice?" Why Midoriya felt a hard smack across his cheek as Gran Torino looked in anger. "Don't you dare say that," GT said. "I watched All Might grow from your age to what he was. He was the same as you, quirkless yet dreamed of being a hero. He never cared about money or fame like most people. All he cared about was saving as many people as he could and being someone the world could believe in. He chose you because you are him. Right now, we need you to be here." Izuku teared up at the old hero's speech, the one who had seen 3 generations of One for All come and go. "Why, you're right," Izuku said with vigor. "I will never stop, I will stop AFO no matter what and bring peace." "That's the spirit," GT said, smiling. "Now let's get moving." Toru Hagakure slowly sneaked around the area her classmates were being restrained in. 16, 17, 18. "We're missing one," one of the pros yelled. "It has to be that invisible girl," another one said. "Damn it, none of us have any infrared or thermal quirks." "Find her." The pros began to vividly search, swinging their arms around hoping to feel her so they could grab her. Toru snuck behind Bakugo and whispered in his ear. "It's me," she said. "I'm gonna loosen these restraints and then you blast them while I get everyone else." Bakugo merely muffled angrily through these restraints as she pulled out a paperclip from underneath her tongue. She used it to pick the locks and Bakugo was free. "You hear something?" he said as a massive explosion rocked the ground. "Hey back, you bastards," he yelled as explosions popped in his hands. He was soon joined by Todoroki and the others as Toru freed them all. The pros, being caught off guard, were being quickly overwhelmed. Damn, one of them yelled as Todoroki froze them onto the wall while Mineta and Zero smothered two others with their quirks. Koda used an invoice to summon hordes of bugs which float in like a black mist. Yaoirozu utilizes her quirk to create metal restraints, and Iida uses his speed to lock them onto the pros. Bajira used a move he perfected where he spun in a circle using his tail to whack a pro multiple times, while Aoyama used his naval laser to blast him into the wall. Asui served as a distraction, while Tokoyami used dark shadows to render several more unconscious. Within minutes the class was freed and the pros knocked out. Excellent work, Toru. Yaoirozu complimented, earning a blush which was impossible to see. Quick. We must find a master. Iida called out. Midoriya has escaped and we must inform him immediately. Are you crazy? He said we'd be punished if we didn't have him. Ashita yelled. That no longer applies, we found him and restrained him just as he had asked and arrived here to deal with him. Iida said. We must regroup for further orders. Let's move. Yaoirozu said as the class headed outside. Eraserhead, how nice of you to join us. Afo said, greeting the pro. Let my students go. Aizawa said angrily. Why? They are content, I have done nothing to harm them, they are still the same people with memories that are their own. I am helping them to accomplish great things, but hunting down young Izuku. Afo replies. I'm not even going to dignify myself with a response to that crap. Aizawa shot back. Master? Aizawa turned to see his students rush out. They immediately circled behind him. Damn it. I can't fight him with them here, he'll use them as a shield. Eraser thought. Now then, let us be, Afo said as he was slammed into the ground with a powerful force. No, master. Asui yelled, seeing their beloved lord be smashed into the earth. The was all for one coughed as he looked up to see Yankee's first extended to where he once stood. Impossible. I took your quirk. Afo yelled. Actually you didn't. Aizawa said. I saw you approaching him and I used my erasure as you tried to take his power. He still has his quirk. Doing great. Afo said as he saw Class 1A look with astounded faces. Very well, there is no further reason to hear. He activated a small beacon as a dark purple portal appeared behind him. Oh! He yelled as the students and himself ran into before anyone could stop him. Yankee ran towards the closing portal only for it to disappear before he could reach it. Damn it! He yelled. He got away. He was then embraced by Lady Liberty, who hugged him tight. So glad you're okay. She said, crying into his shoulder. If not dead, he could have lost his quirk, which some would consider worse than death. Careful, I'm still fucking hungover from last night. Yankee said, clutching his head before turning to Eraserhead. I owe you big time. You may be a downright degenerate, but your skill speaks for itself. You have my thanks for protecting the boy. Aizawa said. Does anyone know where they went? No. Spangle said. Gran Torino grabbed him and took him somewhere safe. I should track them, but the fewer people who know their location the better. Eraserhead said. How was he? The kid. Not too good. Lady Liberty said. I overheard him having a pretty bad breakdown, poor sweetie, it must be hard for him. That's what Afo wants, to break him down mentally till he loses it. Looks like it's working. Eraserhead explained. Kids have a rough life even before all this crap. Dad abandoned him and he grew up poor, plus he was bullied in school for being quirkless. I don't know how much more of this he can take. The fact that guy took my ultimate move and only had a few busted bones. Yankee muttered. I blasted him with everything I had. It wasn't enough. How do you stop this guy? Midoriya is the only one who can. One for all is the only quirk that all for one can't steal. Aizawa said. Well, looks like we got our faith in the little guy. Yankee said as Lady Liberty helped him up. What will you do? Spangle asked. I must leave it to Gran Torino to train him. I will stay here and find a way to erase this mind control. On top of Afo, we have at least a dozen heroes in Japan at Yankee's level in terms of skill and power. When Midoriya masters one for all and returns, he will only have to deal with all for one, but every pro in the country and then some. Eraser said. Very well. Yankee said. Let's get fixed up here, between the hangover and this ass whooping I'm hurting like a motherfucker. The portal opened up back in Japan as all for one and Class 1A stepped out. Tamura noticed the slight limp in his master's walk and ran to help him. Master? Are you injured? Tamura cried as he helped all for one stabilize himself. Yes, thank you my boy. Afo said. How did the mission go? Tamura asked. Not good, Class 1A did their job and succeeded in capturing Midoriya, so credit to them on their part. He said as the students released a collective sigh of relief. The American hero Yankee and Eraserhead interfered and Midoriya fell away. What? Tamura said angrily. How can you be so calm? I would be furious. I have taught you many things, Tamura, but it appears patience is not one of them. Getting angry causes you to be rash, which causes you to make mistakes, which causes you to fail. Believe me when I say it is a weakness I have exploited many times. You must always stay calm and collected. Of course, master. Tamura said, helping All for One to sit down. You are all dismissed. Afo said to Class 1A. GT and Izuku have not stopped traveling. They had been going for nearly 10 days now, avoiding all public transportation and areas in order to stay completely off the radar. They slept in tents and ate whatever canned foods they could get in small town stores. We need to get further into the wilderness. GT said, reading a map. He had turned off his cell phone and mid-areas to prevent even any chance of being traced. With Kurogiri teleportation quirk, they could come for Izuku at any time if they knew their location. It was going to be rough living off the land. Gran Torino didn't know how long it would take Izuku to master his power. It could be done in weeks to as long as a few years. Before he left, he contacted Melissa Shield on a private line, who had informed she had finished construction of Izuku's suit and that it had been dropped in a remote area, along with canned foods, medical supplies, and other necessities. She gave Gran Torino the coordinates before destroying her phone to ensure it couldn't be traced. GT looked at the map and saw that they were getting close, about 20 miles north of their current location. Being an old-timer, GT had grown up learning navigation and map reading as an essential function. Let's take a quick rest. GT said, sitting down in a tree stump. I'm not as young as I used to be. The two sat down and shared a quick meal as GT went over their training plan. You said you were able to go to 25%. The old man asked for a spoonful of beans. Yeah. Izuku said, biting into an apple. That's good progress indeed, but you have not used it in battle. GT said. Yeah, I did. When I was attacked. Izuku said. You held back and didn't utilize it out of fear you'd harm them. GT said. If you really used 20% of your power, they would have been nothing to you. You are either lying to me and didn't even come close to 25%, or you did and you couldn't bring yourself to use it against them, am I right? Yeah. Izuku said, frowning. I couldn't hurt them, even though they were going to kill me. I still couldn't. I didn't believe a heart this pure could exist in the world. GT thought. You can't be afraid to use your power against them. I'm not saying to kill them, but at least to knock them out. If you keep hesitating to act every time one of them appears, then it doesn't matter how strong you are, you will never defeat All for One. I just want them all back. Izuku said. He'll never forget how great it felt to have people who were actually there for him and wanted to hang out with him. Growing up without friends, a quirk, or a father crippled his self-esteem and confidence. He was still plagued by what Uraraka was going to say to him that night in his room. You'll get them back. You have a power that contains the combined force of 8 generations. Never believe it can't be done. GT said, finishing up his beans. Come on, I want to get those supplies by sundown. I'm bored. Ashido complained about throwing her head back on the couch. Me too, man. Kaminari said. I'm going crazy here. You could always shock yourself so you're too dumb to realize you're bored. Jiro said, swinging her earphone jack. Come on, would you drop that already? Kaminari yelled. How can you all be so damn calm? We let the villain get away. Bakugo screamed, slamming his hand down on the table. Actually, we didn't. Asui said. We located and captured him just as we were instructed. The American heroes got in the way once the master appeared in the ribbon. Did you all feel that guy Yankee's power? Kirishima asked. I thought the world was ending. I didn't know there were people that strong. It's a big world out there. Todoroki threw in. Nearly 8 billion people in hundreds of countries on 7 continents. Who knows what else is out there? Has anyone seen Hagakure? Yaoyorozu asked before realizing the futility of her question. Kirishima laughed. Last I saw her, she was going to Wajiro's room and asked for no one to bother them. So there? Todoroki asked. Yup, down in the dirty. Kirishima said, smiling. So manly. How would that even work? Would you see it go in or would it just disappear? Todoroki thought before shoving the dirty thought out of his head. You're so lucky. I want a guy to rock my world like that, Mina thought, throwing a glance at Kirishima. While she believed Todoroki was the most handsome guy in their school, she found herself often attracted to Kirishima's confident and bold personality. I'm surprised you're not spying on Mineta. Asui said to the resident pervert. Don't get me wrong, I would, but she's invisible. All I would see is a Jiro, which is not something I'm into. Mineta proudly confessed. I can't believe they perform such dirty actions in a place of learning. Iida yelled. Oh, shut up, nerd, you're just jealous he's getting some, and you're not. Jiro said. I am not. Iida cried. I am an outstanding gentleman with respect to academia and women. And with that I am going to bed. Tokoyami said as he left the common area for his room. He was followed by every boy while the girls all stayed awake. They made small talk when they heard footsteps and saw floating shirts and a shirt. "You have to tell me everything," Asita yelled as the invisible girl blushed hard. GT and Izuku continued their trek as they came to a densely wooded area. According to his map, they were close to northern Wisconsin by now. Izuku has used one for all sparingly to cover large distances in a shorter time. GT began searching the trees and ground for a package that was supposed to be here. "It's got to be here somewhere," GT muttered. Izuku helped him look, but there was nothing. After 20 minutes of searching, GT was at his wit's end. "Where the hell is it?" Izuku looked up and his eyes widened as he saw a mediocre-sized box falling at full speed. "Look out!" Izuku cried, using his quirk to push GT out of the way as the metal box slammed into the ground where he once stood. "Shit," GT said, looking up. "Watch it, damn it," he yelled to the pilotless drone which had dropped it. The drone quietly hovered away. "Are you okay?" Izuku asked. "Yeah, damn robots, pieces of junk can't think to make rational choices," GT mumbles as he makes his way to the package. It was hefty, around 4 feet tall and 8 feet wide. GT worked the locks till it opened, revealing a plethora of essentials. "Good, we were getting low on food," GT said, examining the piles of canned foods and compact energy bars. There was also a first aid kit along with fishing lines and knives for hunting and other wild uses. "What the hell is this?" Gran Torino said, pulling out powdered milk and prune juice. Izuku looked at the objects and stifled a chuckle. "How old does she think I am?" Finally he came to a set of red plaster metallic casts. "Is that?" Izuku asked. "Yes," GT said, pulled out the pieces. There were casts for the arms, legs, chest, back, neck and head. Izuku has never head-butted with one for all for the fear he would snap his neck. "Wow," Izuku said as the suit lay in front of him. "Quick, try it out," GT said as Izuku put on a cast on his right arm. He looked up and scanned the area to make sure there were no people or animals in the vicinity. He then powered up one for all and gulped. "This is it," Izuku thought as he brought his arm back. Detroit smash. He launched the quirk at full power. His fist went forward as a massive shockwave cleared the area of trees. The sheer force of the hit blew Gran Torino back. Once the dust settled, Izuku looked in amazement at the damage from his blow. Everything was gone, completely leveled. The forest was no more. "Ayua!" Izuku cried. He felt guilty destroying the forest, not wanting to rob animals of their home. "Good lord," GT said. This punch was even mightier than All Might's hit. Looks like it was true that one for all grew in power for each inheritor. That must have been seen for miles. GT knew that since Izuku did not have his license, he was not allowed to use his quirk in public like that, especially since he was in a different country. "I had no idea," Izuku said, looking at his hand. He was amazed how a simple fist could generate so much raw power. He was filled with confidence as he let out a smile. All for One would never know what hit him. "Well, your power is certainly there," GT said. "However, you cannot face him until you can use full power without the suit. If he were to take it off of you or it was damaged, you'd be in a deep puddle of shit." "How do I do it?" Izuku asked. "You're going to train at full power with the suit. Over time you will remove small pieces to allow your body to adapt to the increase in power. This may take several months," GT said. "We don't have months," he yelled. "My friends are still there under his control. Who knows what he is making them do. I know this is hard, but going against All for One without full control of your quirk is suicide. There's a solid line between being a hero and putting your life on the line and being stupid with no regard for personal safety. It is a line you still have blurred," GT scolded. But Izuku tried to say. "Any more excuses out of your mouth and I will find someone else to take this power. You aren't ready, no matter how hard you wish, nothing is changing that," GT said. He knew that he couldn't forcibly remove One for All, but it was about the meaning behind the words that mattered. "Okay," Izuku said, sniffling. "Let's get started then." Afo sat at his self-appointed throne room smack dab in the center of heroism. He tapped his fingers vigorously on his armrest. He was angered that Midoriya escaped and that they had no leads on his whereabouts. He knew GT was an expert in avoiding him and that would only make things more difficult. He needed to do something drastic to lure him out. "Tamura," Afo called his successor. "Yes?" Tamura asked as he entered the room. "Midoriya is well hidden. Gran Torino is too well suited against me to allow me to locate them," Afo said. "I knew those children were worthless." Tamura growled angrily at the failure of Class 1A. "They did their job, located and captured Midoriya. It was only through means we had no control over that he escaped," Afo explained. "So if we can't locate him, we will lure him out." "How do you plan to do that?" Tamura asked, intrigued. The boy is too easily overwhelmed with emotion. If someone is in danger, he will cast aside all self-preservation for his own life to save them. Afo said. I will have our minions round up the quirkless population and have them put into camps to work. If they don't, they die. Oh yes, Midoriya is an idiot, there is no way he wouldn't make a move. Tamura said. He personally believed that the quirkless were leftovers of human evolution and that they should be discarded in this new age of quirks. Of course, this will also outrage international organizations and most likely will prompt an attack by heroes around the world. Afo explained. What about the brat's mother? Tamura suggested. If you threaten her over television or radio, there is no way he'd stay hidden. That would work, except I know Gran Torino too well. They are most likely completely isolated from civilization, living in the wilderness and having no electronic devices for risk of being tracked. He wouldn't see it for months. Afo said as he rubbed his chin, thinking of a way to draw him out. Why not just use your mind quirk on him? Force him to come out? Tamura asked. It seemed like a genius and foolproof plan. They are out of range. Afo said. Even the amplification quirk that was so graciously offered to me can only increase its range by a few hundred miles. That is why some parts of Japan are resisting me and why I waited till the best pros in the country were at my throat. Damn it. Tamura said angrily. That is not all. One for all not only can be transferred, it fuses with the powers of all who wielded it before. Afo explained. You mean that brat has more than one quirk? Tamura asked, confused. Yes, there is one in particular that makes him immune to mind quirks. Afo said. The third wielder of One for All, Lyko Katagum, possesses a quirk that allows him to resist mind control. Afo said. Do you remember at the UA Sports Festival when Midoriya faced the student who could control the minds of those who spoke to him? Midoriya broke free due to this inherited quirk. And there are other powers as well? The prodigy asked. Yes, I know of Black Whip, which is similar to mine. The mind resists quirk and my brother's transfer quirk. There are 4 more which I have no knowledge of. All Might and the boy himself were both quirkless, so nothing to worry about there. This quirk is so powerful. Tamura said, slamming his hands in anger. Why did All Might never use these? He was so proficient in One for All, he likely never bothered to learn them. Who knows? Had he not been the idiotic of he was and learned them, he may have still been living. Afo said, mocking the late symbol of peace. Now that you know this, I must get back to finding a way to draw him out. Yes, master. Tamura said, leaving Sfo to his thoughts. 2 weeks later. DT watched diligently as Izuku ran around and practiced with One for All at full power. The suit kept his body from taking the blow of the great power. The two had to keep moving, especially after Izuku wiping out a massive chunk of forest had prompted the authorities to investigate. After narrowly avoiding that fiasco, GT had instructed Izuku to only fire hits into the air well above ground level to avoid any destruction. This brought up the issue of passing aircraft getting caught in the blow, which resulted in working mostly in darker hours so they could see the flash of passing planes and other aircraft. Gran Torino frowned, all for one way certainly not making this easy for them. If they had access to an actual training center along with actual food and supplies, progress would be much quicker. That however was out of the question and they would have to make do for what they had. You better beat him, Izuku, I'm supposed to be enjoying my retirement. GT thought. He should have been sitting on a beach in Chicago right now enjoying American cuisine, but of course things had to go awfully wrong. Izuku. Come over here. Gran Torino called out as Izuku literally disappeared from where he was and reappeared right in front of the old hero, nearly giving him a heart attack. He yelled as Izuku materialized out of seemingly nowhere. In reality, he had been moving so fast that it was impossible to see. Sorry. Izuku cried. Geez kid. GT said, standing up. You know elderly hearts don't react to surprise as well as young ones do. He brushed the dirt off himself before looking back at the boy. You seem to have a handle on your power at full strength. We will start by removing chunks of the armor so your body can adapt to the output. Well, okay. Izuku gulped as he removed several small pieces of armor. He looked back to GT waiting for an answer. Go at 35% for now, if you feel you can go further, do it, but stop if you feel pain. GT ordered. Izuku nodded as he powered up his quirk and took off. At 35% he definitely felt powerful tugs and pull throughout his body with some of the armor gone, but it seemed stable enough. Izuku weighed the pros and cons of going further and decided against it as the tugging and pulling increased. He practiced it for several hours as Gran Torino observed closely. This is actually good progress, perhaps all he ever needed was some motivation. GT thought, referring to All for One. The 3 international heroes braced themselves as Japan's top 3 closed in. Blizzard conjured a massive blast of concentrated ice and launched it at Endeavor, who responded by firing a blast of fire. The two blows struck midway and created a massive cloud of steam as fire and ice duked it out. Spartan jumped up into the air to take care of Hawks, who was able to dodge the man easily with his agility and flight. Best Jeanist immediately shot tens of thousands of fiber threads across the ground, which nearly took out all the clothing on his upper body. He knew of Eclipse's quirk and was preparing for it. His prediction came true when he immediately lost his sight, hearing, and speech. In a new dark and silent world, he felt the vibrations of his threads, much like how a spider locates their prey. He felt vibrations coming from the left side and brought his leg up to strike and felt it make contact. Eclipse yelled as the kick struck her in the stomach, knocking her to the ground. "Get back here, you little bastard." Spartan yelled at Hawks, who were quite literally flying circles around him. Spartan was getting aggravated and began to use debris lying on the ground to try to knock the pro out of the sky. This was no simple task, however, as Hawks, while dodging the incoming projectiles, also used the feathers on his wings to strike at Spartan. "Damn it. His flames are so hot." Blizzard cursed. He was over 400 feet away and he could feel the blaze of endeavor. He knew he didn't want those powerful blazes making contact with his skin. He also knew that while he and the other two international heroes were on a strict knockout basis, these three pros had no problem killing while under a foe's control. Blizzard fires several ice shots at the man, but they all melted before contact could be made. "If only I could use my special move. He'd be out in seconds," the Russian thought. Polar Vortex. Blizzard's ultimate move. He can generate extremely low temperatures, as low as -100 degrees Fahrenheit. This has its downsides, however, as anyone who is exposed will freeze to death within a minute. The closer to a pole he is, the more powerful vortex is generated. "There's too many people here. Even if it was just me and him, he'd also die from the temperature," Blizzard thought as he dodged a roaring fireball. He had never used this move in combat before. He only used it if there were roaring fires that just couldn't be controlled by anything else, or if there was a volcanic eruption near a populated area. His ultimate move was so destructive that he required special authorization from governments to use. "Damn it." Spartan yelled, missing yet another shot. He could see the wings of Hawk slowly growing smaller with each feather he used. It wouldn't be long before he could no longer fly, allowing Spartan to dish the final blow. Eclipse was having issues of her own. With Best Jeanist thread surrounding the area, it was impossible to attack him, even with most of his senses gone. "I got to destroy these damn threads," she thought, as she dodged several hits from Japan's number 3 pro. "I've had enough of this," she thought. "Oi. Blizzard." "What?" he yelled aggravatedly as he dodged more fireballs. "Freeze this wanker thread so I can kick his ass," she yelled. "Without his threads I can knock him out." "Of course, why not?" Blizzard yelled back in white. "It's not like I'm fighting a supernova right now." "Oh, you big baby. I'll deal with him. Just freeze these damn threads," Eclipse yelled back. Blizzard rolled his eyes as he fired a blast at Endeavor to distract him so he could launch a massive ice ball at the threads Best Jeanist had laid out. The ground froze, as did the thousands of little threads. Eclipse smiled as she smashed the frozen threads to pieces, leaving Best Jeanist unable to detect her movement. "Let me return the favor," she cried as she used her quirk on Endeavor, who had gotten too close to her. Japan's new number 1 fell to the ground as he lost his senses, making him an easy target. She ran up to Best Jeanist and restrained him with powerful restraints and knocked him out cold with a few well-placed kicks. Blizzard took advantage of Endeavor's state and froze him to the ground while delivering neutralizing blows to his head. Spartan continued to deal with Hawks, who evaded his strikes. "Come down and give me, you coward," the Spartan screamed in frustration. He felt the air around him grow cold as Blizzard used his quirk to lower the air temperature. Hawks yelled as the weight of ice on his wings caused him to make a landing. He stumbled as he landed, only to be met by the Spartan's satisfied face. "No running away now," Spartan yelled. Blizzard and Eclipse looked away as screams and the sound of punching echoed. Soon it was silent as Spartan walked over with an unconscious Hawks. "Top 3 of Japan. What a joke," he yelled, throwing the limp body for he ground. The three celebrated their victory as those also in the battle cheered in from the rubble. "They did it. World's top pros. Here we go. Push forward." Resounding cheers of victory were heard as a portal opened up nearby. The 3 international pros turned to see their main target reveal himself. "So who chooses to incur my wrath?" All for One said as made his way to them. "Come at me, villain," Spartan challenged. "Your strongest warriors lie defeated. Soon you shall too." "Shut up," Blizzard said. "This guy withstood Yankees and All Might's ultimate move. Do not underestimate him." "Now then, shall we begin?" All for One asked. Izuku's training continued. It had been well over a year since he received One for All, and in that time, he had been able to get to 40% of its power. GT frowned, hoping it wouldn't take that long to reach 100%. He noticed the smile on Izuku's face as he flew around practicing. Must be that endorphin high. GT thought. He was grateful though, anything to take the boy's mind off of what was happening in Japan. The routine went something like this. Wake up, eat, stretch, train punches and kicks, break, eat, spar with GT, do physical exercises to increase body mass, eat, shower, stretch, and bed. It was a rigorous regimen, but it was working. GT theorized that the more muscle and mass a body had, the better equipped it is to withstand one for all. It explained why All Might had seemed so natural with it given his bulk. It was a shame how his injuries caused his body to wither into a skeleton. Izuku has packed on a lot of muscle. He was a far cry from All Might's level of musculature, but the size of his muscles were starting to get to the level of being the envy of every man. Come back down, Izuku. Lunchtime. GT called out as Izuku appeared right in front of him out of nowhere. Damn it, what did I say about doing that? GT roared as he clutched his racing heart. Sorry. Izuku cried. He didn't mean to do it, but it seemed too unnatural at this point to move any slower. Too bad All For One doesn't have a phobia of jump scares, you could beat him in seconds otherwise. GT moaned as he pulled out slabs of meat from a deer they had hunted the previous day. He got to cooking them as they both had a quick appetizer of apples from nearby trees they had discovered. GT made sure to give Izuku a large chunk of meat. Not only was he a growing boy, he couldn't even imagine how insanely high one's metabolism must be with a quirk like One For All. Once the meat was cooked, the old hero gave Izuku a portion that was nearly the size of half the deer. Thanks. Izuku said gratefully as he bit into the sweet venison. He relished the sweet taste and texture as he chewed and swallowed. How do you feel? GT asked. I feel great. Izuku proclaimed as he clenched his fist. If this is what close to 50% is like, I can't imagine what full power is. Don't get cocky, the stronger you get, the longer it takes to see results. GT said, referring to the plateau many bodybuilders of old were plagued by. It was easy to see fast results when starting from the bottom, but the stronger you got, the harder it was to push yourself to get better. He had heard stories of some weightlifters training for months, only to add 10 to 15 pounds to their max. It was the same with One For All. So you know how One For All grows stronger with each person it passes on to? Izuku asked to take another bite of meat. Yes. GT asked. You think it'll ever become so powerful that no one can use it? Izuku asked. Like how I'd break my arm using it, you think someday no matter how strong the person is they simply wouldn't be able to contain it? That is a good question. GT said. He remembered Nanashimura telling him that when All For One's brother possessed this quirk, he could at most break concrete and metal. Nothing like what All Might and Izuku were capable of. I'm afraid I do not know, and that we will both be long gone by the time something like that could happen. That's another thing. Izuku said. One day I will have to pass this power to another. How will I know they are the right choice? What if they decide to be a villain and they can't be stopped? Typical, always looking into the future. GT thought. That's quite a way in the future. You are still young, trust me when I say that there is a reason the elderly are more wise than the young. When that time comes, you'll know who to choose. But that's the thing. Izuku said. That encounter with All Might was purely by chance. Had he not been there when Kaken was being attacked, he would have never seen me and would have picked someone else. Well, if he had picked someone else he would have been a bigger fool than I thought. GT said. You know, back in my day when I was a young boy, heroes were still pretty recent. Each of them focused on being a hero and saving lives. Now there are many who are in it for the money, fame, and glory. Trust me when I say you are unique in your drive to be what a hero really is. He remembered how All Might was named the ideal hero. Not only was she powerful and brave, in his eyes, no one wasn't important enough to save. He made time for every autograph and photo, and even donated the great majority of his money to charity. He frowned thinking of those like Endeavor who abused his wife in a forced marriage and trained his children like they were child soldiers just to be strong. Yeah. Izuku said. There was truth to GT's words. He thought of his classmates. Mineta was in it to get girls, Kaken was in it to be famous, Todoroki was in it because it was forced on him, and Uraraka, while having noble thoughts in mind to help her struggling parents, was focused on money. Thinking of them made his heart ache. Over the last few weeks he had time to process everything that was happening and was able to cope with it by training. Why is that Ichako seems so much more violent towards me than the rest? Izuku asked. GT knew he was referring to the brunette zero-gravity user in his class. He held his breath when he was asked this. He knew any mention of his class or Japan would be followed by a nervous breakdown. He was both shocked and impressed to see Izuku maintain his composure. Poor kid, he is being forced to grow up too fast. Can't say for sure, but I have a pretty good guess. GT said, knowing he was treading on some thin ice here. He had to choose his words carefully. You were particularly close with her, correct? Yes. Izuku said sadly. He was close with all his classmates, but he felt something much deeper towards the rosy-cheeked girl. My guess is All For One knows this, he is using her to wear you down due to your connection with her. GT noticed Izuku trembling. Damn him. Izuku cursed, which caught GT off guard. As long as he had known the aspiring hero, he had never ever cursed. He also picked up a hint of deep anger in his voice. He figured that while he had learned to live with what was going on, it was changing him in a negative way. He had picked up on this by random bursts of anger from Izuku and his savage way of eating meat. It was like a young man sent to war. He left confident and patriotic, but came back changed. He was angry and pessimistic. GT had seen this all too many times in his years of life. Young and idealistic men and women with aims of being a hero, and then witnessing the gruesome and cruel reality of their profession. The haunting screams of those they were unable to save, the crushing pressure from society to be an ideal hero, the physical trauma of battling villains, the constant overwhelming stress, resulted in self-destructive behaviors and sometimes going rogue. This was what happened with the hero killer Stain, once an aspiring hero with the mentality of Izuku. He had turned to murder of good people, simply because he believed they weren't worthy of his insane ideals. Izuku, enough. GT ordered. This boy had withstood bullying, no father in his life, poverty, an attack from the sludge villain which almost killed him, the USJ attacked, the encounter with Stain, and the attack at the summer camp, and still stayed the same boy. Looks like even the strongest have their breaking point. GT thought. Why yeah. Izuku said, reverting back to the apologetic and overly emotional fanboy he normally was. What were you saying? What the hell? GT asked in shock, seeing two completely different people. Izuku happily munched on the rest of his meal as GT was left dumbfounded. Once they finished their lunch, GT got up and walked over to him. Alright, time for some sparring. Just like before, either dodge or block me as much as possible. I will not advance you till you block or dodge every single one of my strikes. GT instructed. Yes, sir. Izuku said with a wide smile on his face. What is happening to his kid? Yankee and Lady Liberty sparred in a large open field. Since Lady Liberty did not possess massive amounts of physical strength, Yankee could hit her without fear of blowing her in half. They had been going for about a half hour when Yankee opened his mouth. I think that's enough for today. He said. This caught Lady Liberty off guard. Sparring was his favorite pastime after drinking and football. For him to just stop after only a half hour was very unlike him. Are you sure? She asked nicely. Yes. He screamed louder than he meant. Lady Liberty frowned at him. Don't you raise your voice at me when I was trying to be nice. Lady Liberty scolded. Yankee realized his mistake and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, Susie. He called her by her actual name. He sat down and put his face into his hands. She walked over and sat next to him. Tell me what's eating you up, Brent. She said kindly, also calling him by his actual name. That villain, All For One, I hit him with the most powerful hit I ever used. I didn't hold back, I gave everything I had, and he only had some busted bones while I was on the ground about to pass out. Yankee confessed. Lady Liberty looked at him sadly. She knew he took great pride and seriousness with his title as America's #1 pro. Know what the worst part is? He said, laughing in a pathetic way. I was scared shitless, I couldn't move when he was going to take my quirk, I just let it happen. He said, ashamed. And that little kid had to fight him, and he showed more balls than I did. Lady Liberty pulled him in for a hug. Despite his suggestive comments towards her bodily attributes and his obnoxious personality, she truly did care for him. They two were very close and went way back. Ah, now. Lady Liberty said sweetly. Yankee was so powerful that it had been almost a decade since he fought Muerto, the one and only fight where he could be overpowered. She realized this feeling of despair and helplessness was foreign to him. You know, it's been so long since you were scared, since you are so strong, I think you've forgotten what courage is. It's okay to be afraid, what makes you a hero is going forward even when you're terrified. That doesn't excuse it. Yankee said sadly. I'm supposed to be the third strongest in the world. And I was helpless like a damn scared baby. That's what makes you great. Lady Liberty said, pulling his head into her chest. She knew he was upset because otherwise he would make a crack about her upai size. You knew that guy killed All Might and you still went to fight him while we were all fighting children. I guess it's just that the kid is a bigger man than me. Yankee said. At his age I was a pussy. I was scared to ever confront anyone or throw a punch. And here he is fearless and daring. I'll be damned if I say he won't be the best hero the world has ever seen. You are a hero, Yankee, sure you could cut back on the beer and pizza. She said playfully, slapping his gut. But you have saved so many people who have lost count. All Might would be proud of you. She remembered being in his class at Usha and how he was relentlessly tormented for his heavy build. He would cry and cry, but never wanted to raise a fist to hurt anyone. It wasn't till All Might came to talk to him one day while he sat by himself in the cafeteria that he learned confidence. "You're right. I feel better now. Thanks, Susie," he said thankfully. "So you okay now?" she asked. "Well, I could use another face full of boobs," he said smiling. "Yup, yeah, okay," she said, happy that he was feeling better. "Maybe one day when you learn to be a gentleman you could get a lot more than a faceful," she whispered to him. His face quickly became one of excitement as his tongue fell out like a dog waiting for a treat. "Oh yeah?" he asked happily. "But it appears that day is far from now," she teased, giggling at the look of disappointment on his face. She wasn't entirely lying, she always loved how brave and patriotic he was. Yes, he had a belly, but he did have a very handsome face and great personality. He did have muscles on him that were the envy of many. "Are you two done?" a stoic voice called out. The two stood up as they saw Eraserhead walk towards them. They both still felt the sting of his lecture from weeks ago. "Yup. Nothing to see here," Yankee replied. Eraserhead said suspiciously. "Come with me, I need your help." "You got it, Eraser," Lady Liberty said as the two ran towards the Japanese pro. "Well, I was certainly hoping for more than this," All for One taunted. Blizzard, Spartan, and Eclipse lie bloodied and bruised before him. "Unbelievable, how can anyone have this kind of power?" Blizzard thought. "I knew he was strong, but he can't be human," thought Spartan. "Damn. Is he immortal?" Eclipse thought. The three had given everything, even forcing Blizzard to use his ultimate move. It was all for naught, this villain was simply too strong. All Might, Yankee, and now Blizzard, Spartan, and Eclipse. All for One taunted. "Who now can stop me?" "Shut up," Eclipse yelled, clutching her midsection. "We stopped your mindless drones," she cried, referring to the unconscious bodies of Hawks, Best Jeanist, and Endeavor. "Yes, you are certainly powerful in your own ways," All for One said. "Which is why you'll be tantalum to my goal." The villain raised his hands like he did during his fight with Izuku at UA. Before any of the international heroes had a chance to protest, he had them under his control. With All for One taking Blizzard, Spartan, and Eclipse into control, further efforts to assist Japan were halted. It had shocked the world that 5 of the world's top heroes had faced All for One, and all had been defeated. World governments came together to discuss a way to stop the villain. They had decided to not send any more pros, given how All for One not only defeated them, but took control of them as well. 2 months had passed since any news came out of Japan. The world prepared for the worst, especially close countries like Russia, China, and other parts of Asia. "I suggest the use of nuclear warheads," a delegate proclaimed. "In a major city, are you insane?" Another one replied, shocked that someone would even suggest that. The world was getting desperate. There was nothing stopping All for One from invading and destroying all opposition. "What other choice do we have?" a woman yelled out. "The world's best pros couldn't beat this guy. If what they say is true, then he has been taking quirks for nearly 200 years. He is unstoppable. Who can stop him if the world's best couldn't?" Unknown to the world, the last shimmer of hope was now residing in the Canadian wilderness. Over the last 2 months, Izuku and Gran Torino continued to travel north until they eventually crossed into Canada. They had not had human contact in that time, and Izuku has grown to forget that there were even other people in the world. After a long and hard day of training, Izuku easily went off to sleep like he did every day. He often dreaded it though, he was plagued by nightmares with All Might being killed, his classmates harming him, and not being strong enough to defeat All for One. Tonight was different though, he found himself in a large room where he saw 2 men talking to each other. "You can't be serious," the younger one called out. His green hair flowed over his face, making it difficult to see him. "But I am," the older man said, gripping his fist and making a small flame appear. "The world is in chaos and requires correcting, I shall be the one to do it." "You can't just steal other people's quirks," the younger one yelled. "You can't just kill those who don't agree with your demented ideals." "I wouldn't expect you to understand, my quirkless younger brother," the other man said. Izuku now knew that this had to be All for One and his younger brother. Whether or not this was his own mind's visualization of the event that created One for All, or he was tapping into the quirk's memory, he was still unsure of. "Allow me to make you understand," All for One said, reaching out to his younger brother's head. A yell was heard as the younger brother fell to his knees. "So now you see the truth," a voice said. Izuku turned around to see the same man who had been talking with All for One. "The truth of our origin, this brotherhood which has come together over 9 generations. Are you?" Izuku questioned. "I am All for One's younger brother, the first wielder of One for All," he said. "My name is Mizuki Midoriya." All for One grinned seeing his newest minions, he truly was unstoppable. If only he no longer had to rely on these machines that the cursed All Might had inflicted upon him. He remembered being plagued by nightmares of All Might for the years following the fight. He had lost his sight, his smell, and his once handsome face to the symbol of peace. He quickly scowled, as anger and loathing for the former number 1 pro filled his body. "Damn you All Might," he thought, as he was renewed with vigor to ensure Midoriya's suffering. The boy had caused no real trouble to him and was not responsible for his injuries, but he was All Might's successor. That fact alone made him deserve a tortured life and brutal death. How does it feel, All Might? Subjecting a young child to such despair? Some hero you are. I will destroy your legacy and submit the brat you cared so much about to unbearable agony. The villain thought loudly, as if All Might was in the room and could hear him. He smiled at remembering his painful scream upon realizing Tamura, his master's grandson. The villain decided to do something about his looks and injuries. He figured there was someone out there with some kind of regeneration quirk that would allow him to see and smell again and not require these blasted machines to keep him alive. In all his years, he has never seen such a quirk, however. He had seen healer quirks, but that would not work on him since he was missing entire organs. There was nothing to heal. He then decided to summon his minions to search for him. "What?" Izuku cried. "Your name was what again?" "Midoriya, I am your great-great-granduncle," Mizuki explained. "I never thought One for All would find its way back to my bloodline." Izuku was so shocked he couldn't form words. The first wielder of the most powerful quirk in history was related to him. That also meant. "All for One," Izuku said disgustedly. "He is also my ancestor." "Yes," Mizuki said. "Kabashi Midoriya was once his name. I doubt even remembers what he was called anymore." "But how? All Might never mentioned you either had offspring," Izuku said, still in denial. "I never did, my brother killed me before I had the chance to ever have a family," Mizuki explained. "My brother, however, had many consorts over the decades, promising quirks to those who didn't have one in exchange for sex in order to create children who had powerful quirks he could steal before he disposed of them. I'm glad to see at least one of them was able to make it out alive." "That monster," Izuku said on the verge of tears. A lot of villains had one common rule: they never harmed children. Only the absolute most despicable villains on earth ever harmed a child. "It pains me to see 7 of my successors have fallen to him," Mizuki said. "I have been stuck in this limbo for over 200 years, praying that one day he would be defeated so I could finally rest. Toshinari came so close, but alas, even he was strong enough." "Wait. All Might is here," Izuku said hopefully. "Please, I have to talk with him." "I'm afraid you can't. He along with the other 7 are stuck in a comatose state and cannot speak or move. Only I have that curse," Mizuki said. Years of isolation and guilt over his brother's actions has driven him weary. "If All Might or any of you couldn't beat him, how am I supposed to?" Izuku asked. "He's even stronger now than ever before." "Because One for All is not the only power you have," Mizuki said. "You know its origin, how I had a quirk that allowed me to willingly transfer it, and then I received from my brother a quirk to stockpile power. They merged and formed One for All. The same goes for all who wielded this quirk. Of the 9 holders, only you and Toshinari were quirkless. You already have mine, which allows you to transfer the quirk. There are 6 more which will manifest." "6?" Izuku said, looking down. He had all these abilities within him. He couldn't believe how he was born quirkless and now he wielded such power. "If what you say is true, why didn't All Might ever use them?" "Toshinari was a great hero," Mizuki said, sighing. "But he was too rash, similar to your great-nephew. He had been so proficient in stockpiling energy he never bothered to learn the others. The first sight again. Maybe if he had, then he could have defeated my brother." Izuku frowned. He was torn between anger at the first for insulting his hero and the frustration of knowing he was right. "So what are the others?" Izuku asked. "You said there are 6, correct?" "Yes, you already have mine, which allows you to transfer the quirk," Mizuki asked. "Flight, that one is self-explanatory. Age, this will allow you to change your body's physical appearance to any age you wish, but you will still remain the same age. Black Whip, this will allow you to use black tendrils that can be manipulated to grab objects. Heartbeat, which will allow you to locate an enemy even when blinded. Mind Block, which will make you immune to mental attacks, and Solar Saber, this allows you to create a standing beam of light capable of cutting through most substances." "All that," Izuku said, as his jaw dropped. Flight combined with One for All could make him fly at supersonic speeds. Age would allow him to change his body mass in order to withstand One for All better, and so on. "How do I get the rest of these quirks?" "But my fear, grandnephew, is something you must do on your own," Mizuki said. "You will defeat All for One and bring peace to this world." Izuku saw lights flashing as Mizuki disappeared. He opened his eyes and shot up in shock. Had that really just happened? 6 more quirks. If they are as good as Mizuki said, then what could All for One do to stop him? Something wrong? GT asked, rubbing his eyes. It was very late, so late in fact it was almost early. I don't even know where to begin. Izuku said, as he explained his dream to GT. The old man sat in disbelief as Izuku explained what he had learned. 6 more quirks. GT said. I never recalled All Might or Nanashimura utilizing any of the quirks you described. He said, putting his hand under his chin. And you are the descent of All for One and his brother? You must think I'm crazy, huh? Izuku said, rubbing the back of his head. It was more than a dream, I could feel it, it was so real. If what he says is true, then you will certainly be more than a match for All for One. GT said. I have my doubts for sure, but I will put this down lightly. We will train and focus on this tomorrow. For now, get back to bed. Yeah, sure. Izuku said as he rolled back into his sleeping bag but found he could not go to sleep with all this on his mind. What is your command, Master? Blizzard asked as he, Spartan, Eclipse and Endeavor all entered his room. I have many quirks at my disposal, however there are some I still require. All for One explained. I'm a busy man, as you can see, so I need you all to go out and find the following quirk for me. Find me a regeneration quirk so I can regain my former strength. Of course. Endeavor said as the 4 bowed before leaving. He waited as he saw Class 1A enter the room as well. The students all stood at attention out of respect. Ah, my children. Afo said, greeting Class 1A. Do you know why I summoned you? No, sir. Iida replied. In this new world, we have no need for those who are quirkless. All for One said, referring to the 20% of the population who had no quirk. I want you all to round them up and have them placed into camps. I will then come to grant them my blessing. Where shall we bring them? Yaoirozu asked. I will place you under the command of Tamura, he will have the location set up. All for One explained. Now go, children, and wipe the world of these leftover humans. Class 1A nodded and left to carry out All for One's plan. This will get your attention, Midoriya. All for One said, smiling, knowing the boy wouldn't be able to resist coming back. Over the course of the next few weeks, Izuku had gotten close to 75% of One for All. He also was focusing on unlocking the other quirks that had been told to him. Gran Torino's eyes shot out of his skull when he saw black tendrils come out from Izuku's arms as he used them to grip onto trees or to fling objects. He had now grown too fast for GT to spar with. He watched with joy as Izuku made the new quirk his own. Izuku was close to 2,000 feet in the air from a jump he had performed and looked down at the ground looking to try something. I've already unlocked Black Whip. Mizuki also said that flight was another quirk. If I concentrate while I'm falling, maybe I can get it to manifest. Izuku said, allowing himself to free fall. He knew that even if the flight quirk didn't manifest, he should survive the fall if he landed right. The ground zoomed closer as he focused on what he needed to. Slowly he felt his descent come to a halt as he opened his eyes to see he was floating. He said happily as he looked over to GT, who was snacking on a sweet cookie, who looked at him with a smile of approval. Izuku turned himself upright and launched himself up into the air. This wasn't like jumping far with One for All, this was like having true freedom. He laughed as he flew around as the sun set over the horizon. What do you want from me? A young woman cried in despair. She was being hoisted up by Endeavor and was filled to the brim with fear. These heroes were supposed to protect her. Their quirk. Eclipse said menacingly. What is it? My quirk? She asked, horrified. She was out of All for One's mind quirk range and remained herself. Yes, you imbecile. The Spartan roared, causing the young woman to break down. Now there's no need to be rough with the young woman. Blizzard asked, still retaining his calm and quiet demeanor. All we want to know is what your quirk is, then you can be on your way. Really? She asked, sniffling, not believing a word of it but wanting to get out of this situation. My quirk is night vision. I can see in the dark. That's it though. It's really not that good. Night vision, eh? Endeavor asked. Sounds useful, but not what we are looking for. He said, dropping her to the ground. You can leave now. The young woman didn't even wait for him to finish talking before she bolted away for dear life. How are we supposed to find this quirk he wants? We've been at it for almost 2 days. Eclipse complained. They had asked close to 1,000 people and none of them had anything remotely close to the quirk All for One wanted. The closest they came was a quirk that could regrow hair, but that wasn't enough. Quiet, we will find what he wants. Endeavor replies as they continue their task. Meanwhile, other heroes and Class 1A were busy rounding up the quirkless population. Move it, you quirkless losers. Bakugo screamed, igniting his explosion to motivate the crowd to move. Yes, sir. The terrified crowd replied. Their hands had been restrained by Zero and they were moving forward towards a makeshift camp. Anyone moves and you'll be sorry. Tori yelled, though no one paid her any mind since no one could see her. Sato and Kirishima worked with Shoji in forcing the people into the camp, while Asui and Mineta were in charge of stopping anyone trying to escape. Yayoi Rozu produced shackles for the prisoners. The other members of Class 1A simply worked around the camp, making sure everything was in order. "Mina," an elderly lady cried out. "Mina, it's me. Aunt Ryamako." Ashido turned to see an older woman with frilly hair like hers call out to her. "Stop this. These people have done no wrong. They're quirkless. They have no purpose." Ashido glared. Ryamaki widened her eyes. This wasn't her sweet and happy niece. "What has that horrible man done to you?" she said, referring to All for One. She remembered Mina as such a happy, energetic child who loved cute things and wanted to be a hero, not this amoral, cruel person who puts people in camps. "What did you say?" Ashido yelled, smacking her aunt across the face. "Don't you ever insult him again." "Mina," she cried as she was pushed away by the crowd being forced in. She felt crushed. All she wanted was to embrace her niece again. The quirkless population of Japan fell into despair. Those who weren't quirkless but were not under AFO's control were placed into other camps where they would receive their indoctrination shortly. In the other camp for those who were not quirkless, the pros gathered to find someone with a regeneration quirk. "Listen up, and this will go quickly." Endeavor roared, igniting his hell flame so he would grab everyone's attention. "We need someone with a regeneration quirk. Comply and you will be rewarded. Likewise, if you resist, there will be consequences." "Oh, fuck you," an old man yelled, causing the crowd to gasp. Endeavor's eyes widened upon seeing an elderly man relying on a cane to walk, slowly stumble towards him. "Pardon my language, young man, but this is no way for heroes to act." "Really?" Endeavor said, intrigued. "And just what do you know about that?" "I was once one myself," the old man said proudly. "The air hero, Winfang." The crowd gasped upon hearing the man's name. "Winfang? I thought he was dead." "Winfang? He's got to be 100 years old now." Man, no one wondered, no one recognized him. Winfang got a tick mark on his head upon hearing everyone make comments about his age. "Will you all shut up?" he yelled, annoyed, as the crowd stopped murmuring. "Back to you. You're really that weak? Just going to let this All for One manipulate your mind like good? You're the one who is weak here, old geezer. Fairy tale reference. Endeavor and Laxus share the same dub actor, and Laxus refers to Makarov as an old geezer. "I follow my master's commands because I am loyal." "Loyal? Master? I see now why you were only ever number 2. All Might was clearly the better man." Winfang snapped. "What did you say?" Endeavor growled dangerously as his flames ignited. "That name isn't to be spoken," he screamed as he prepared a flame ball to fire at the old man. "Wait, stop." A young girl called out, rushing in front of Winfang. "I have a regeneration quirk." "No, don't," Winfang shouted. "Really?" Endeavor asked, slightly lowering his arm. "Go on." "I can regenerate wounds for myself," she said. "You better not be lying," Endeavor asked. "For your sake and the old man's." "I'll prove it," she said, picking up a piece of broken glass and slicing her wrist with it, to the horror of everyone there. Red blood immediately shot up out from the ruptured artery and sprayed like a hose nozzle before almost instantly stopping as all the severed tissue grew back. "You fool," Winfang said as Endeavor landed on the ground next to her. "I'll go without a fight if you leave them all alone," the girl said bravely. "Very well," Endeavor said, grabbing the girl before calling out to the other 3. "We have what we need. Let's go." "I won't let you," Winfang said, trying to rush forward only to fall as he clutched his heart, which had been working hard for almost a century. A group of people nearby ran to him to help. "He needs help. I think he's having a heart attack," a man cried as Winfang gasped for breath. "Figure it out," Spartan yelled back. "You can't just leave him here to die. At least let her heal him, please," the man begged. "Not our problem," Eclipse said as the 4 departed with the girl in tow. Winfang finally let out one last breath before succumbing to the sands of time. "Grandpa," the captured girl screamed as she was taken away. Back in the woods, Izuku continued to fly. It felt so liberating. He hadn't felt this free since he received One for All. GT sat down on the ground, feeling a little envious. Everyone for all of human history at one point dreamed of being able to fly and just go whenever, no limitations, true freedom. "Well, I can't complain too much, my quirk is quite similar," GT said, smiling. "Izuku, come back down," he called out. He saw Izuku stop flying and slowly descend to the ground. "We need to work on getting your other quirks to manifest." "What other ones did you have again?" "Well, I have the ability to transfer, flight, and black whip," Izuku said, holding up his fingers. "That means I still have age, heartbeat, solar saber, and mind block to get. Those will be tricky," GT said. Black Whip and Flight had been easy to unlock since Izuku could put himself in a position where he truly needed them. These others would be difficult. I do have an idea to get all these unlocked, but there is one issue. Which is? Izuku asked. We have to go to Africa. GT said. Lioness would be able to help. Lioness? Nigeria's #1 pro. She can manifest the abilities of a lion, which increases her strength, speed, and sense of smell. Lioness? Izuku said excitedly. I'd be happy to meet her, but how would she help me unlock my other quirks? Aside from being a pro, Lioness comes from a long line of hypnotic mind readers. GT said. He personally believed the stuff to be an illusion, but he now believed this could be the quickest way to unlock the other quirks. You really think it can work? Izuku asked. It just might. GT said. Problem now is, how do we get to Africa? I have an idea. Izuku said nervously, smiling. GT thought for a second before opening his eyes wide. No. GT yelled. Absolutely not. At full speed I could probably get there in a day or two. Izuku said. Combining his flight with One for All would make him fly at very high speeds. So what happens when we are in the middle of the ocean and you need to sleep or take a dump? GT asked. We are not doing it. How did I let you convince me to do this? GT yelled as Izuku fired off at full speed. Izuku has GT strapped to his back as he sees the coast of the Atlantic Ocean come into view. It was the only way. We couldn't use an airplane. Izuku stated as the wind rushed past them. GT had to admit this was quite exhilarating. There's a lot of small islands that are mostly uninhabited we can make pit stops at, GT said. Of course we don't have any GPS on us, so we will have to rely on line of sight. I'll keep an eye out, Izuku said as the green land transitioned into the deep blue of the ocean. The young woman sobbed as she was escorted to All for One. She was thrown on the floor at the villain's feet. She looked up in fear to see the one who killed All Might. She hyperventilated as she lost feeling in her legs. Hello my dear. He said. You seem nervous, is it the mask? The girl didn't respond. It is quite intimidating, you see I suffered some injuries a while back, which is why I have you here. All for One explained. Tell me about your quirk. My grandpa. He had a heart attack. The girl cried. You left him to die. That wasn't my intent. All for One lied, putting on a sympathetic face. Tell me about your quirk, young lady. Grandpa? She said as she broke down sobbing. All for One frowned. The girl was clearly too emotional to bother to respond. Her quirk is regen, she can heal all wounds she gets. Eclipse butted in. That's what I needed to hear. All for One said, placing his hand on the girl's head. This will sting a little. The girl let out a scream as All for One stole her quirk. She quickly fell to the ground in agony as the villain looked at his hand. He felt a sudden charge of energy as his body began to repair itself. The machines he needed to breathe were no longer necessary as his lungs healed. His deformed face slowly began to replace scar tissue with fresh and young skin. In the two outlines where his eyes used to be, green malicious eyes grew back into place. Bright locks of green hair grew back as his body repaired all the damage he received from All Might. The process didn't take more than a minute as the quirk did its job. He opened his eyes for the first time, no longer relying on his infrared quirk to see. He took in the visual surroundings and let a smile grow as he ran his hand through his thick locks of hair. Some would say he was quite handsome if it weren't for the murderous psychotic mind that lived in the body. Once Midoriya is dead, all proof you ever even existed will be erased. He thought as he let out a joyous laugh. He was back at full power and had his old body back again. Nothing could stop him now. You couldn't have made it, GT said, coughing up water. A few hundred more yards. Sorry. Izuku said, panting. I flew so far, I guess I just got too tired. The two were drenched on the coast of Nigeria and Lagos. The salty seawater left an unpleasant taste in their mouths as they walked up the shore. Izuku had been flying, but fell short by several hundred yards of the coastline, and the two had to swim the rest of the way. The heat of the region quickly dried them off as they made their way into the city. So where will we find her? Izuku asked as he passed several food stands. It won't take long, you don't see too many Japanese folk wandering through Nigeria. I'm sure she'll come to us. GT said. He was correct, the two had been getting stares the whole time. They continued to walk for close to a half hour when they were approached by a tall African woman. Hello strangers. She said in a heavy accent. She was tall, close to 6 feet. Her long black hair and traditional braids with various ornaments and jewelry around her neck and wrist. Her bright white teeth spotted very noticeable canines and a long tail whipped around behind her. Greetings, lioness. GT said respectfully. I am Gran Torino, I am here from Japan. Japan? Where is the evil man who killed All Might controls? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes. GT said. This is Izuku Midoriya, he is All Might's successor and the only one who can take down All for One. Izuku moves forward to introduce himself. He's not getting excited. Usually he freaks every time he meets a new pro. GT thought of noticing the oddity in the boy's behavior. Looks like the mental trauma he has experienced was starting to have more of an effect. He had noticed Izuku didn't talk much now. He had always been a shy kid, but he was a chatterbox when it came to quirks. Random outbursts of anger were becoming more prevalent. Nightmares plagued the boy's mind. GT would often hear Izuku at night crying and calling for All Might. Hum with me, child and elder. Lioness instructed. GT grew a tick mark on his head because of being referred to as elder. Aizawa grunted in frustration. No matter how much he trained, he would never know if he could actually erase All for One's mind quirk and free everybody unless he actually faced the villain head on. How's it going? Yankee asked as he walked into the training room. Yankee, as an apology for getting Izuku drunk and out of gratitude for saving him, had welcomed Eraserhead to his private home. Not good. Aizawa admitted. I won't actually know if this will work unless I face him for real. Yeah, that bastard was something else. Yankee said, remembering how powerful All for One was. He had heard of the fate of Blizzard, Spartan and Eclipse. He was thankful that he too didn't succumb to All for One's control. Where's Lady Liberty? Aizawa asked. Oh, Susie's over visiting her mom and dad. Yankee explained. Even you got to admit she has a rack on her. Aizawa scoffed. Typical Yankee, always changing the subject to Upai. Aizawa was willing to admit internally that Lady Liberty had the largest cup size he had ever seen. You sure like your females? Aizawa simply said. Oh, do I ever? Yankee proclaimed. His perverted nature reminded him of Mineta a lot. Anyway, I think I show Eraser tried to say before a man barged in out of breath. Yankee? He's here. All for One is here. Thanks for watching my video and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then sayonara.